Can you imagine this? A wild lion, not caged, not trained, quietly walks into a human funeral. No roaring, no running away, it just stands there, bows its head, then lies down, as if keeping watch over the final sleep of someone it once knew very well. Sounds like a myth, doesn't it? That's what I thought too, at first. I came to the Serengeti purely out of curiosity, chasing down a rumor that had gone viral online. A story about a lion that once said goodbye to the person who saved it. But what I found was not just the truth. It was a truth so silent, so profound, that I couldn't bring myself to leave that place. And from that very moment, I knew I was standing inside a story that was never just about a man and a beast. The story begins on a scorching morning in the Serengeti. The dry grass cracked beneath the hooves of antelopes, birds flew low and eerily silent, as if the entire reserve was holding its breath. The temperature would reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Everyone stayed inside the station. Everyone. Except him. Tembo. That's what they called him. Short, familiar, just like the way he had etched himself into this land for more than half a century. No more badges, no more titles, just one promise. As long as I can walk, I'll protect this forest. That morning, he checked the canvas pouch on his hip. A few rolls of bandage, an old bottle of medicine, a wrapped pack of cotton. He put on his hat, leaned on the weathered patrol truck, and quietly left the station. "You're really going out in this heat?" Jabari, the young ranger, called after him. Tembo didn't look back. He just smiled. "The old rhino was hurt yesterday. He needs me." The truck turned down a red dirt road, covered in dust. Along the way, Tembo paused as a herd of elephants crossed the grassy clearing. He cracked the door open. He didn't call, didn't move, just raised his hand. A soft nod. And the matriarch gently tilted her head. No words, but somehow they knew each other. When he arrived, he turned off the engine, grabbed his pouch and stepped into the sparse shade. The rhino lay there, breathing heavily. The wound hadn't closed, eyes shut, body still. Tembo didn't approach. He sat down, a few steps away, set the pouch beside him. "I won't touch you. Not until you're ready," he whispered, as if he were speaking to the forest itself. And then the pain struck. A freezing grip in the center of his chest. Tembo doubled over, clutching his heart, breath faltering. He tried to rise, but his legs gave way. Knees hit the dirt. Dust clung to his cheek. His old hat fell from his head. The rhino opened its eyes. No startle, no fear. It just looked at him, long and deep, as if the wild soul within had just recognized something, fading away forever. Back at the nearby station, Jabari and Ayo were at work. A faint sound drifted on the wind, not loud, not clear. Jabari froze. Something's off. He dropped everything and ran toward the brush. By the time he arrived, Tembo had collapsed beside a tuft of grass. His hand lay open, eyes half shut, but his head was still gently tilted, facing the animal, as if he couldn't quite let go. Jabari knelt beside him. Ayo rushed in, one breath behind. Neither spoke, only the sound of wind rustling through the leaves. And no one knew that in that silent moment, from another corner of the reserve, a pair of golden eyes were opening in the underbrush. There was no time to get him to the city hospital. Tembo was brought back to the station, on the very same patrol truck he had driven for so many years. Jabari sat beside him, holding his hand, eyes fixed on that pale face that seemed to be slowly dissolving into the dust of the forest. He was terrified that if he let go, even for a second, Tembo would vanish, as if he had never been there at all. At the medical station, the doctors were already waiting. They did everything they could. CPR, injections, defibrillator. But that heart had stopped beating long before anyone could reach it. Jabari stood outside the door. He didn't cry. He just clutched the old hat Tembo had dropped that morning, the only thing left from a moment already fading. Like mist. News of his passing spread across the reserve. No sirens, no loudspeakers. Only silence. The birds didn't sing. The antelopes didn't leave their shelters. And the wind blew softer, as if it, too, was trying to hold something back. Tembo was gone. But somehow, the forest had known before any of us did. The funeral was held right at the station, just as he had wished, long ago. A wooden bed was placed in the center of the courtyard. No canopy, no silk drapes, just a few sprigs of fresh grass, and a simple white cloth laid gently over him. Tembo lay there. Jabari stood beside the body. His hands trembled. For the first time, he didn't know what to say to the forest. There was no grand ceremony, no speeches, only people, one by one, stepping forward, touching his hand, nodding, and stepping back. In silence. As the sun began to dip toward the west, a herd of elephants passed through the courtyard. No one called. No one signaled. They simply walked past. And the matriarch, once more, tilted her head ever so gently. The courtyard fell still. And then, from the gate, a heavy footfall echoed across the earth. A lion appeared. It walked straight toward Tembo. No aggression, no panic, only its eyes, golden, deep, carrying something ancient, a memory. It looked at the man lying there, as if it knew, beyond all doubt, this was the one who had once saved its life. Jabari stepped back. Io froze. A few people whispered, but the lion didn't stop, didn't turn. And just seconds later, the entire funeral would witness something that, for the rest of their lives, they would never believe could be real. Everyone turned back. And there it was. No one saw where it had come from. All they knew was, when the sunlight slanted over the grave, the lion was already there. No one moved. A ranger reached for his holster, but Jabari stopped him. Don't. He had seen the scar. And suddenly, the memory roared back into the silence. 15 years ago, a young lion had been caught in a trap near the buffer zone. Steel wire tightened into its side. Blood flowed. It roared endlessly. No one dared to get close. No one. Except Tembo. No gun. No gloves. He simply stepped forward, his eyes completely free of fear, his hands carrying only a strip of clean cloth and a small bottle of water. Tembo didn't give commands, didn't whisper comforts. He just murmured something so soft. He removed the trap, cleaned the wound, wrapped it, using the very shirt he was wearing. Then he sat. He sat there until the animal collapsed, not from fear, but from trust. The lion was released into a safe zone, Then it vanished. No one saw it again. Until today. The lion walked straight to the funeral bed. No roar, no claws. Only a bow, a deep, low bow, beside Tembo's still body. A young woman wept. Phones that had been raised, slowly lowered. Because what they were witnessing was no longer a moment. It was a ritual. Jabari stepped forward, placed a hand over his heart, bowed his head, said nothing. The lion looked at him. No fear, no tension, just a stillness so deep. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then it lay down, right at the foot of the bed. Didn't move, didn't leave. It stayed, like a sentinel, standing guard over a final sleep of the man who had once given everything to protect it. And in that moment, Jabari remembered Tembo's eyes, the day he said, "One day, that lion will remember." After that day, the lion was moved to a temporary care zone, a place with low trees, a gentle stream, and a thatched shelter made of straw. No one went near, not even the ones used to handling wild beasts. The wound had been stitched, but its eyes still carried deep confusion. Tembo didn't hand it over to anyone. Every morning he came, sat a few steps away, set down a tray of water, and simply sat. For the first 3 days, it didn't drink. On the 4th day, when Tembo turned to leave, the lion quietly stepped forward and placed its muzzle on the edge of the tray. Jabari was still very young then. His only job was to log the daily reports. But the more he wrote, the more he sensed. Between man and beast, something was being built. Slowly, but truly. One evening, Jabari watched from afar. Tembo sat still, hands resting on his knees. The lion lay nearby, its head resting on its front paws. The two of them looked out toward the setting sun. No words. But in that silence was more meaning than any words could ever hold. "He won't stay here for long," Tembo whispered. "The wound has healed. If we keep him here, he'll learn to forget the forest." A few days later, when the lion could walk strong again, Tembo opened the gate with his own hands. No goodbyes, no crowd, just him, standing beneath a tree. The lion stepped out slowly, stopped right where Tembo stood, looked at him for a long time, then turned away, didn't look back. Once, Jabari asked, "Why didn't you touch him one last time?" When he left. Tembo only shook his head. "Touching to hold on, that's a human thing. But the forest, it has its own way of saying thank you." No priest, no eulogy, just a farewell, carried out in the same way Tembo had lived, quietly, simply, and surrounded by the nature he once called family. According to a handwritten note he had left many years ago, he didn't want to be buried in a cemetery, or beneath a headstone, but in a place he had once pointed to and said to Jabari, "If I could choose, I'd like to rest right here." A gentle slope of grass facing the setting sun, an old baobab tree standing alone in the field. And there, the wind always blew soft, like the forest's own voice. No drums, no gongs, no mourning flags. Just a simple wooden stretcher. His old hat resting on his chest, and a line of people walking silently. each step carried by the wind. The lion followed behind, not called, not invited, but no one dared to stop it, because something in its eyes told them the forest had given it permission to stay. When the procession stopped beneath the tree, it stopped too, didn't push forward, didn't make a sound, just stood at the edge. Jabari and Io lowered Tembo into the earth. No one spoke. A single stone, carved with his name, was placed beside his head, plain. No decoration, no biography. Just Tembo, the silent guardian of the wild. And then the earth closed, and one by one they stepped back in silence. The next morning, while the sun still hesitated behind the trees, someone saw it, standing silently before the grave. No one called, no one waited. But it came. No growl, no roar, just standing there, as if something was still unfinished. Jabari was the first to see. He didn't approach, just stood from afar, and realized it didn't stay because of instinct. It stayed because of memory. Then the next day, and the day after, it came again. No tail swishing, no pawing the ground, just sitting, facing the mound, as if guarding something no one had taught it to guard. A week passed. One morning, Jabari arrived late. All that remained was a single, deep, wide paw print pressed into the earth beside the grave. No explanation was needed. Everyone knew. It had been there. Sometimes people saw it sitting for hours, motionless, not looking around, just sitting, like a piece of the land, but still with a heart. No one feared it anymore. Antelopes walked past without running. Birds perched nearby, unafraid to fly. And the forest itself had accepted it as part of the mourning ritual. One morning, when Io came to visit the grave, he found a few wildflowers neatly laid beside the stone. No one claimed them, but everyone knew. They weren't from a human hand. From that day on, no one called it the lion anymore. They simply said, the four-legged guardian of the grave. No title needed, no training required. It just stayed. Jabari once told a young traveler, "We didn't keep it here, it chose to stay." And sometimes, it's the quietest things that hold on to memory the longest. That month, the reserve was quieter than usual. Not because fewer people came, but because those who did lingered longer at a place that wasn't marked on any tourist map. A rough stone, unmarked, an ancient tree, unnamed, and a story you could only hear through silence. No one took photos, no selfies. They just stood there, for a moment, then bowed their heads, as if greeting an old friend from another lifetime. Jabari still visited, not to mourn, but to listen. Because some things only appear when you're quiet enough to hear them. A young trainee once asked, "Why is Mr. Tembo so deeply respected, even though he never held any high title?" Jabari looked into the distance, then replied, "Because he didn't protect the forest with orders. He protected it with trust. Some people leave without leaving footprints, but the forest remembers. The wind still drifts gently across the grass. The sun still sets behind the old baobab. And somewhere out there, a silent longing still stands, watching the place where Tembo once was.